Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile with a message for everyone paying big wireless way too much. Please, for the love of everything good in this world, stop. With Mint, you can get premium wireless for just $15 a month. Of course, if you enjoy overpaying, no judgments, but that's weird. Okay, one judgment. Anyway, give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
This is Let the Record Show, using common sense. Now, here are your hosts, Judge Richard Weinberg and Chairman Jesse Garcia.
Welcome back to Let the Record Show with Chairman Jesse Garcia of the Republican Party. Jesse is the county chair of the Suffolk Party, as well as the vice chair of the New York State Party. With us is our good friend, Eric Levine, noted attorney, commentator, and essayist. I'm Judge Richard Weinberg. I want to begin today's show, gentlemen, by talking about this disaster in California, these wildfires in California that are literally eating up, gobbling up, and destroying Los Angeles and the Los Angeles communities and the adjacent areas to L.A. To me, this is an indictment of the incompetence and the ideology, where they put ideology first rather than common sense first. They haven't protected the people there. They haven't protected the property there. If they're environmentalists, they don't want to have 100,000 people fled for their lives already. Thousands of structures and homes are down. The cost is going to be in the billions and billions and billions. The failures are a multitude. So, for example, they didn't have sufficient water. Why? Because they diverted the flow of water from the north of California into the Pacific Ocean because they want to protect the fish. So there's no water to put the fires out. How ridiculous is that? Because you're protecting a fish. It's not, by the way, it's not even an endangered species fish. And a couple of years ago, they went and the state of California decided they didn't like the rate increase that was being requested by the insurance companies that wrote the policies protecting against fire. So the company said, you know what? If we can't get a rate increase, if we can't make money and protect our economic interests, then we're not going to write policy. And they stopped writing fire insurance. So a lot of these people have lost their homes, Jesse and Eric, and they don't have fire insurance. It's just a total loss for them. If they rebuild, they have to rebuild at their own expense. And if they rebuild, they're putting themselves at risk again for the next fire. So the whole thing is absolutely incredible. And Donald Trump, when he was president the first time, pointed out because the wildfire crisis and told them exactly what to do and how to do it and how to do, and you're the governor after all, Newsom, how to take care of and tend for the timber danger, which is a tinderbox. And they totally blew him off and blocked any efforts that the federal government under Trump could do, based on his so-called states' rights theory. So now he's attacking Trump. He's saying, Trump, you're making this a political issue. No, this is a governance issue. And Gavin Newsom, forgive this pun, but I think your political career just went up in smoke with all these thousands and thousands of acres because you're not capable of governing. And as for Karen Bass, the Los Angeles mayor, what a ridiculous person she is. She knows there's bad weather coming in. She knows there's a risk of fire. So she goes off to Ghana for the inauguration of the president of Ghana instead of being on hand to work for emergency relief. So, Jesse, what do you think about all this?
What I also think about, let's stick with Mayor Bass. And first and foremost, I know that I'm speaking for all of us and all of us here in New York where, our thoughts and prayers are with those impacted, our neighbors in California impacted by these wildfires. And for those wonderful first responders that, despite them having their hands tied, they're doing their best to save lives and save as much property as possible. Our hat goes off to them. But honestly, what we have here is, one of the things that Mayor Bass did was eliminate $20 million from their fire department budget. Maybe that may be a drop in the bucket of water that they're looking for, but why take resources away and redistribute resources to failed social policies or wherever they put it? Obviously, where they need it is if there's a state that has a history of wildfires, fire protection is where you need to make your investment. Fire protection, law enforcement, and such. And you're absolutely right. I mean, we have, you articulated what President Trump has said about the removing of dams and redirecting of water. And back in 2019, Trump, threatened to cut off federal funds to California if they did not conduct reforms to their forest management services, because the federal government time and time again had been spending billions of dollars. In fact, on X in 2019, he wrote billions of dollars are sent to the state of California for forest fires. That, with proper forest management, would never happen. Unless they get their act together, which is unlikely, I have ordered FEMA to do no more money. It is a disgraceful situation in lives and money, he posted. He foretold this problem. He directed this problem while in office, and nothing's been done. Their policies, the progressives' needs to blame this on climate change and redirect their resources from law enforcement, from infrastructure, from fire prevention to climate change and policies that don't work, that are not tested, they're not scientific. This is what we're dealing with. Their progressive policies have also pushed out the insurance companies that now these homes are gone forever, and these people are stuck with it. Not only that, the base of the California party, the elitist celebrities, are now turning on their own by criticizing Governor Newsom, Mayor Bass, and that bizarre legislature for their policies that have now left their lives and their homes in ruins. If there's an example of failed governance in a progressive state or progressive community, we didn't get one example. We got a double bang here. The city of Los Angeles and Mayor Bass, and the governor of California, Governor Newsom.
These people should resign, and if they don't resign,
Absolutely.
They should be recalled. They are a disgrace. They are a disgrace. Eric, your thoughts?
So, I mean, the politics of water in Southern California is really nothing new. I mean, one of my favorite movies of all time, Chinatown, with Jack Nicholson. If you haven't seen it, I recommend it to you. It's a suspense thriller. There are deaths and there are murders as arising out of how water is going to be allocated and who's going to control it and what areas of Los Angeles are going to benefit from it and which are going to be laid waste. So this is really nothing new, but it doesn't make the tragedy that's ongoing any less severe. I agree with the two of you 100%. A lot of this, not all of it, but a lot of this lays at the feet of the social justice agenda and the progressive left. I mean, the Babylon Bee today had a headline, very dark. Governor Newsom announces to the state of California not to worry. The fires will not prevent him from allocating hundreds of millions of dollars to new DEI initiatives, which I think it gets back to the point that you guys were making. But you think of the ripple effect of this. I mean, I have a very dear friend who's under an evacuation order. My son lives currently in an area of Los Angeles that has not yet been evacuated, but it is potential as the fires drift further east, he may have to evacuate. He and his two cats. But it's not just private homes that are being burned down, and as Richard, you point out, because there's no fire insurance because of the politics of a lot of the progressive left. But think of apartment buildings. You're going to have landlords whose entire livelihood is based on, renting out their apartments. The apartment building is going to be burned to the ground. The tenants are obviously going to leave to save their own lives. And then once the apartments are no longer inhabitable, they're not going to pay rent. And then what is the landlord going to do? The ripple effect of the housing market, not just in private homes, but in middle class and lower middle class areas of Los Angeles, is going to be devastated potentially from decades to come.
And businesses have gone under.
Businesses are being burned. There's nothing that makes a commercial property any more fireproof than a residential home. Businesses are going to be destroyed. Lives are going to be destroyed. The city of Los Angeles hopefully the recovery will be swift and easy. But I think we have to be realistic. The potential of coming back from this may be even more devastating than 9/11 was to New York, because it is the devastation, physical devastation to the city is much broader than south of Wall Street. And then the surrounding Ground Zero area. Los Angeles as a city is on the precipice of being destroyed as a world renowned city.
Of course, it's absolutely awful.
But I think our focus right now, as much as these people are to blame, and I share your consternation and disgust, right now, 100% of our attention, the federal government, the state government, local government, has to be on protecting lives and property in order to salvage. And then once that's done, then it's time to come for the Governor Newsoms and the Mayor Basses.
And by the way,
world.
did you take any solace when you're standing next to Newsom was President Biden, who took the opportunity to say what a good day it was because he has a great-grandson or grandchild?
We got to stop. We got to get off Biden. The guy's delusional. The guy has dementia. I mean, he's pathetic. Thankfully, he's yesterday's news. But yeah,
he's still today's news until he's out of there.
It's shocking. It's shocking.
Okay, let me.
8 days from today.
Yeah,
the airing of this show.
But who's counting? We are.
America.
America's counting. Okay, so
the world is counting.
So let me talk to you about what's going to be happening tomorrow in state Supreme Court, unless it's blocked by the United States Supreme Court. Donald Trump will either physically in person or virtually be facing Judge Merchan in the hush money case, a case, as I've said early, often, and continuously, a case never should have been brought by Alvin Bragg, has no justifiable legal theory, no basis in fact or law for criminality. If there is, quote, criminality, remember it's only an internal bookkeeping measure, so nobody relied on it, so it raised the issue even there. But if it was criminality, it was a misdemeanor at best. The statute of limitations had run a long time ago, and Bragg, after taking heat and having people write a book criticizing him, decides to bring a case that the United States Department of Justice and the U.S. Attorney for Southern District of New York and his predecessor as DA refused to bring because there was no there.
Only after consulting with the White House.
And they send in the number 3 guy at the Department of Justice. You want to talk about collusion? You want to talk about bad faith? You want to talk about corruption of the prosecutorial function, judicial function? They send in the number 3 guy, the United States Department of Justice, to become a local assistant DA. No disrespect to local assistant DAs in Manhattan, but it ain't the same thing. You're not on the same level. They brought him in to manage that case, to strategize, to try the case, to bring home a guilty verdict. Every ruling that this judge made, I'm overstating it. 90% of the 90%
you may
of
not
the rulings,
be. You may not be.
90% of the rulings were wrong as a matter of law. I am telling you, he was allowing things in that never should have been done. He allowed witnesses' testimony that should have been there, totally irrelevant. It was all prejudicial. It was a case that never should have been brought in Manhattan because of the bias against Trump. It's a case this judge never should have presided over because he was a contributor to Democratic Party candidates, and his daughter was making money off of the Biden-Harris machine. So please, a case that never should have been brought on a specious theory that somehow involved a campaign and the campaign was totally over. It was nonsense. This whole thing was awful. And what happened? He gets convicted on 34 counts, and he's already signaled that he's going to give him an unconditional discharge, Judge Merchan said. But he wants to sentence him. Why? Because the political public relations damnation of Trump is now he will be a convicted felon. He will be a criminal felon. If he's not sentenced, you can't call him that. And that's why he did this. And he's doing this on the cusp of Trump becoming president again in the inauguration on the 20th. It's absolutely outrageous. They've gone to the Supreme Court of the United States because they can't get an honest hearing in the state system. You had 2 judges, one of whom I know, who gave as much weight as she could, but she still did the wrong thing. She should have stopped that from going forward. That was the appellate division. They tried to go to the New York Court of Appeals, and one of the most extreme left-wing progressive judges there in Court of Appeals denied it. So instead of going to the United States Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit, they ran to the Supreme Court. And we're going to see what the Supreme Court of the United States does on this. But I just want to tell you something, and Eric and Jesse have alluded to this. This thing is so reprehensible. This case is so reprehensible. The whole idea that they brought and abused criminal charges which were nonsensical and not based on fact or law, and they brought in people, senior people from the Justice Department, and there was communications between the local prosecutors, the Justice Department, and the White House. All of those things seems to me lead to my humble advice. There should be an investigation of the corruption that was done, the lawfare corruption. Eric, you have a couple of minutes. What do you have to say on that?
Well, in terms of the bringing of the case and the biases shown by the judge and the poor judgment by Bragg and the politicization of the legal criminal justice system, I agree with you 100% on all of that. Trump has appealed, as you pointed out, to the Supreme Court to try to get the Supreme Court to block Merchan from entering judgment. So I think one of the important things for people to know is there's a difference between a decision on the merits and a decision on process, on procedure. And I think where the Supreme Court's going to come down to say is it's premature. We're not going to make any decision on the merits. We're going to wait until after he rules on the. We're not going to block. We're not going to block him from sentencing. But I think they're going to let that go forward. But I kind of question the strategy of going to the Supreme Court. I will agree with you, Richard, 100% on this idea that he's going to have this sentence where if Trump behaves himself, his record will be wiped clean. It really just undermines the entire reason for bringing this thing. It puts on full display what the political reason was for bringing it in the first place. But unless and until Merchan sentences him, there is no appeal. You don't have a basis to appeal. You have to be sentenced before you are, quote unquote, a convicted felon, and then you can start the appeal process.
But he's being denied his right to appeal on the immunity protection that was granted by the Supreme Court of the United States.
Well, I don't know that that's right. Remember, the immunity decision by the Supreme Court has been misrepresented. The Supreme Court has not said that a president, no matter what he does, is entitled to immunity. But this is important. It's only if he is acting in his official capacity is there immunity.
But they tainted evidence because they used official acts for part of conviction. So you have a tainted record, you have prejudice to the jury panel.
I understand that. I understand that's the argument. And I think the flip side to that is, well, maybe some of this was in his private capacity, but that's why we need to hear the entire appeal. I actually think Trump benefits if he has the sentence. Who cares? People have already processed the idea that he's a convicted felon. Nobody cares about it anymore. No one.
Except the Manhattan.
Well, fine. He's not carrying Manhattan. He's not running for re-election, and he's not carrying Manhattan, even if he does. So nobody really cares about it. So I think that concern is misplaced. I think where Trump would really win is let Merchan issue the sentence. People will realize what a piece of garbage it is, and then he could start his appeal. And I have every confidence that even in the New York State Court of Appeals, whether it's the First Department or the Court of Appeals itself, which is the New York equivalent to the Supreme Court, or if he has to go to the United States Supreme Court ultimately, he will win. And then New York really looks like, and Bragg really looks like the lowlife that he is. But I don't see, I could be wrong, you may be right, I don't see procedurally that the Supreme Court's going to insinuate itself into it now.
All right, we have to take a break. This is Let the Record Show with Chairman Jesse Garcia of the Republican Party, noted attorney, commentator, and essayist Eric Levine. I'm Judge Richard Weinberg. Please stay with us. We'll be back in but a few moments with more important and interesting conversation.
Let the Record Show is on the air.
This episode is brought to you by Loom by Atlassian. Are you feeling stuck at work? Get your team unstuck with Loom video messaging and move work forward. Use Loom to simultaneously record both your screen and yourself to share a quick update, provide feedback, train a colleague, and everything in between. Plus, add Loom AI to your meetings for instant written notes and recordings. Try Loom today at Loom.com. That's LOOM.com.
This episode is brought to you by Buick. When you have 4 new tires, every drive feels fresh. Right now, buy 3 select tires and get 1 for just $1 during the Buick Certified Service Fresh Start Tire Event. Visit Buick.com/service offers or see dealer for full details. At participating U.S. GM dealers only, highest or equal value tire will be $1. Offer ends 5/31/2025. Not available with other offers.
your snacking routine can get a little dull. Time for a light and fit remix. Like a crunchy storm of graham cookies, caramel pearls, and dark chocolate, showering down into a smooth, creamy yogurt. Enjoy 3 light and fit remix varieties with craveable flavors and up to 120 calories and 10 grams of protein per 4.5-ounce serving. See remixyogurt.com.
Mic check. 1, 2. Are we recording? Hi, I'm Michelle Bernstein, an award-winning chef, restaurateur, and mom. I have a lot on my plate, including my psoriatic arthritis symptoms. That's why I was prescribed Cosentyx. It helps me move better.
Cosentyx secukinumab is prescribed for people 2 years of age and older with active psoriatic arthritis. Don't use if you're allergic to Cosentyx. Before starting, get checked for tuberculosis. An increased risk of infections and lowered ability to fight them may occur, like tuberculosis or other serious bacterial, fungal, or viral infections. Some were fatal. Tell your doctor if you have an infection or symptoms like fevers, sweats, chills, muscle aches, or cough, had a vaccine or plan to, or if inflammatory bowel disease symptoms develop or worsen. Serious allergic reactions and severe eczema-like skin reactions may occur. Learn more at 1-844-COSENTYX or Cosentyx.com.
Ask your rheumatologist about Cosentyx.
This is Let the Record Show. Now, here are your hosts, Judge Richard Weinberg and Suffolk County Republican Committee Chairman Jesse Garcia.
We are back on Let the Record Show with Chairman Jesse Garcia of the Republican Party, noted attorney, commentator, essayist Eric Levine. I'm Judge Richard Weinberg. So, Jesse, you're about to make a big decision. Are you going to agree with Eric? You're going to agree with me? You're going to agree with both of us? File a dissenting opinion? Your turn.
For myself, I agree with both of you. I think you're both right.
Okay.
I believe
spineless.
I think
spineless.
This is because these are reasons why. Number one, you have to remember in the theater we're in, it's not just a courtroom; it's a theater of public opinion. And while I do believe that the whole thing about a felon has been already baked and already discounted by the people, there is an issue here of in the public realm. I believe it's fine for him to move forward with this way to seek this type of action in the Supreme Court while almost simultaneously going to move forward. I think it's important, Your Honor. I think for our listeners, I think you need to just plainly speak. What does an unconditional discharge mean in the state of New York? So we understand what that means.
It means nothing. You stay out.
It means nothing.
It means nothing. It's
you
over.
steal a candy bar, and they catch you, and the judge says to the 15-year-old, if you never steal another candy bar, we'll expunge your record. Right. So that's basically what this is.
It means nothing. It means nothing. You don't have to report to anybody. You don't have to do community service.
It just shows, it just highlights how contemptible this is. The amount of attention that this trial drew.
The money spent
the
on it. The diversion
on
from protecting the citizens of New York County.
It really is just despicable.
That is the discussion and the point I wanted to raise by asking that question, because I believe that this merchant's decision and his drive to move forward, basically his actions confirm that this was a compromised judge, a partisan judge. His daughter was a Democrat fundraising and operative. Certainly, we've already discussed the actions of the Department of Justice coordinating with Bragg for the purposes of eliminating a political opponent. I hope in the future the Supreme Court does take this up and let the chips fall where it may, because it will demonstrate independently by the third tier of our government what this actually was. It was nothing more than lawfare and exposes the weaponization by the Democrat Party of our institutions of government, especially those that must be fair and just, that we all as average Americans trust that we can get a fair shake in our justice system. What Donald Trump demonstrated and effectively used as a tool in this case is that if they can do this to me, I'm just first. You're next.
I think that's right. And by the way, if I were one of Donald Trump's counsels tomorrow, if this does go forward, what I would do is before the way it works is you, as the judge, you say to the defendant, do you have anything to say before I impose sentence? That's his right. He has a right to stay silent. He has a right to speak. If I'm Donald Trump, I'll have my lawyers write out a statement laying out almost like a bill of particulars, Jesse and Eric, all the things that were wrong, all the prejudice, all the political nonsense, all the lawfare. Just lay it out on a public record as a statement. And while I may, and end it up, while I may respect the judiciary as an institution, I have no respect for what was done here because this was a contemptible attack on a political opponent. That's how I would end it. And that's what I would do. Now, Jesse, I want to switch gears because you and I want to take some credit with Eric about the re-election.
Excerpts of our show were released and pushed the needle forward.
I think that the three of us are responsible
for Speaker Johnson
being reelected. Never mind the Trump phone calls. We're the reason.
There you go.
Absolutely. We made sure that the government continued to function on January 3rd.
And people should thank us for it.
Common sense to D.C. for that period of time, those 2-hour period of time.
I know people have been stopping me on the street to say thank you.
Thousands. You look at it on 3rd Avenue, Jesse. People are just running over to Eric. I mean, it's just amazing. He's now a star. He's a rock and roll star. So let me ask you. So Johnson's now got reelected, and he has a very tough path ahead of him because he still has some of these people on the radical right of the Republican Party who are pathological, who don't understand the nature of the business, what it is that he has to do to govern, to get things through, the responsibility to govern, and the politics of getting things through the legislative process. So the big debate, Jesse, is you do one big bill, as Larry Kudlow calls it, one wonderful, beautiful bill.
Big, beautiful bill.
Big, beautiful bill, or do you divide up into two? The process is called reconciliation. Without getting too complicated, fundamentally it means it has to have a fiscal impact. You can't just do public policy this way with reconciliation, and it avoids the filibuster hurdles. You're able to do with a simple majority, and you have the Vice President of the United States who vote with the Republicans, so there should be no problem getting things through
no
on
problem.
the Senate.
Yeah, no problem in the Senate.
In the Senate. But, Jesse, I'm concerned about this group of dissidents in the Republican caucus in the House. What does Johnson do? And you're a distinguished political leader. What does he do to herd the cats here to make sure that they act responsibly and protect themselves politically, but more importantly, protect the country and allow Trump to do his agenda, which will protect our interests?
Well, first of all, I think that Mike Johnson, we've said this, is the right man at the right time to serve as the Speaker of this House. It took us some time to get him to that position, but once he was there, he demonstrated the skill set, the compassion, and the guile needed to lead a conference that with a razor-thin majority. I believe that he acted precisely. I think the advantages he has, we can get into the debate about whether or not we should use one bill, two bills. It's my understanding, because the Congress hasn't passed a budget twice, that actually there's three reconciliation
really three
two this year and one
next year.
Okay,
exactly. So my suggestion on that is listen, I think he has two big sticks here. One is the White House. Donald Trump has demonstrated that he's not only the leader of this party, he is tapped into the second big stick of that Speaker Johnson has with anybody that may be running rampant and running rogue. And that is that he is connected. They are connected now with the American people. The American people have spoken. They want border security. They want energy independence. They want inflation to be tackled. They want the extension of the 2017 tax cuts. We want salt to be restored or raised here in the state of New York. And also the tax benefits that Trump spoke about. No tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security. Those issues need to now move forward. And, there will be conservative and those people who do not like blue states on the Republican conference that may fight that. But this is the art of compromise, and here's the issue. I believe that Donald Trump has demonstrated his ability to sway, to encourage, to move forward in a direction, those roads that are there, by securing what needs to be done. And I believe he's going to be doing that by demonstrating that, first and foremost, and we'll get into this a little bit later, on his day one executive orders that will set the table for this. Give him the victories, give the Republican conference and the American people the victories they were looking for as based on their election results of November 5th. So I believe that that's the actions that they have. I do believe that maybe if you can get this all done in one bill, because it is a political town. It is the political town, Washington, D.C. You only get a good 12 to 14 months of governance or legislation to get done in any conference, because the midterms are literally less than a year away when that cycle begins. And basically nothing's going to get done. And by not missing the boat, by being able to certify the election on January 6th, by electing the speaker on January 3rd, and moving forward with legislation to move forward the Trump agenda, which is the America First agenda voted for by the American people. I believe that by getting that moving forward in a one big beautiful bill or two bills, the best thing about what the president said is that whatever gets it done. You want to do one big beautiful bill, we'll do it in one big beautiful bill. You want to do it in two big beautiful bills, we'll do it in two big beautiful bills. And he has a third reconciliation sitting out there that he could utilize.
Yeah, I think that one big, beautiful bill is unrealistic. And I think we're probably better off, in my humble opinion, to have a smaller bill first, and then which involves primarily the border, things on which just about everyone agrees. You probably get a lot of Democratic votes as well. If the country said nothing in unanimity, it said we need to secure the border. So I think if we can have a border security bill, I think if that can go first, I think that would be helpful, because then you can put a notch on your belt, one success, and success breeds success. Precisely, you gave a perfect example, Jesse, of why it may be dangerous to have one big beautiful bill, and that's SALT. So the tax is going to be a little more problematic. It's going to take longer to draft, and there's going to be a lot more competing interests. And SALT, a state and local tax deduction for the blue states like New York, California, and Illinois, states that have lower taxes or no income taxes, like Texas or Florida, they're not going to be too keen on bringing the SALT deduction back. So it's probably that's just one example of some of the complexities in drafting a tax bill. So the fewer potential conflicts between and among Republican House members, the better. And if we could take off the table those things we agree on and get that done, we'll tell the American people, look, we can govern. Part of passing these bills is not just getting stuff done for the sake of getting them done or making people's lives better going forward. It's to convince the American people that Republicans can govern. And given the House's performance, Republican House's performance in the last couple of cycles, that remains an open question to a lot of Americans. So if we can get a bill through with basically complete Republican unanimity and maybe a few Democratic votes, all Republican senators, and maybe a potential, a few Democratic senators, that will speak to the American people that we can govern. And that'll make it a little easier, I think, when we get to the more difficult issues like a tax policy, for us to get the support of the American people on some of the more controversial aspects of it.
Yes, it's very interesting. This is an interesting conversation.
We only have interesting conversations.
Of course.
I don't know about you, but I only have an interesting conversation.
Interesting and important, as we say. Look, I'll tell you why I think it's particularly interesting. Because one of the great debates in the caucus is going to be, if you divide it up, as Eric suggests, rather than one big bill, which one comes first, the border or the taxes? Now, I happen to believe that they're both very, very important. And I understand Eric's point with respect to doing the border first, because that's something that most people, and you probably get some Democratic votes out of that too. So I think that's a compelling argument. Larry Kudlow, who I have a lot of respect for, a great economist and the chief economic advisor to Trump in the first administration, he has a different view. And his view is you do the tax bill first because it takes a long time for tax changes to see fruition and to have impact on people's lives. And you want to show that you've impacted people's lives economically, and it's all about the Benjamins, and it's all about people's pocketbooks. So that's an interesting discussion, an interesting debate.
But you run the risk of failing. And if you fail in your first shot, it could be devastating.
In the first Trump administration, when Ryan pushed for, or Trump pushed for, I don't even remember anymore, for doing something about Obamacare, that was a mistake.
Yeah, I agree.
That was a mistake.
I agree.
All right. I want to switch gears. Jesse, I want to get your thoughts on this. It seems to me, as I'm watching this unfold these last few days of the Biden administration, that Biden keeps trying to throw obstacles to the Trump administration as it comes in, whether it's on spending, green environmental agendas, the canonization of these January 6th committee, giving awards to Liz Cheney and to Thompson, the chair of that committee, which was a fiasco, a sham, overbroad pardons, giving people a free ride. They're sentenced to death because they're vicious killers, and he lets them off the hook. All kinds of failed public policies that he keeps pushing through. What's with this guy? I thought we were going to have a smooth transition. He was going to support Trump as he took over the office.
Well, the people who are running the government are telling Joe Biden that this is the smooth transition of government. Seriously, there's nothing we can do about the pardons and such. However, a lot of what we're seeing in the last days of the Biden administration, this miscarriage of governance and justice, is simply a doubling down on failed policies. He's using a flurry of executive orders to try and justify a legacy, try and justify his policies, and that the American people have rejected. He's creating obstacles, and that just means that Trump's first day is going to be a little bit tougher. Not only does Trump have to issue his own executive orders to institute and reinstitute his former policies, like on the border and such, he's going to have to do even more to unwind these worthless executive orders in the last days of an administration. Because if they were of any serious or of any constitute of any substance, these would have happened much earlier in the time. He's going to have to do. Trump is going to have to do executive orders to make us energy independent, secure our borders, and address overregulation. But all these things, all these Biden executive orders, are just a reflection of failed policies. Will it make it a little bit harder? Maybe take a little bit more time. I guess the president better get a couple of pens. President Trump better get a couple of pens ready, because ink's going to run out on those big, beautiful executive orders that he puts out. But the fact of the matter is, this president is a worker. He doesn't sleep much. He wakes up caring about the American people. He goes to sleep caring about the American people. And I believe that what's going to come forward, and in fact, I know it in my heart, that these actions will be undertaken. But honestly, Your Honor, Eric, are you surprised that these obstacles are coming forward? Are you surprised after 4 years of the Biden failed administration with Harris, the 8 years of Obama and Biden? Are you surprised that he's not going to put his legacy, his own philosophy, his own ideology ahead of the interests of the American people and America's future? His entire career has been based on that, and the pardon of his son clearly demonstrates that.
I agree with that. This is Let the Record Show with Chairman Jesse Garcia, the Republican Party, noted attorney, commentator, and essayist Eric Levine. I'm Judge Richard Weinberg. Please stay with us for our third and final segment of this week's show. Please hold on. We'll be right back.
This is Let the Record Show.
Custom window treatments are a small upgrade that have a big impact. No better time to shop than now at Blinds.com's Memorial Day Mega Sale. Blinds.com invented a better way to shop for window treatments, completely online with upfront pricing, no showroom markups, no salespeople in your home. Choose from classic shutters to outdoor shades and more, all backed by our 100% satisfaction guarantee. Shop Blinds.com's Memorial Day Mega Sale now. Save up to 50% site-wide, plus a free measure. Rules and restrictions may apply.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever find yourself playing the budgeting game? Well, with the Name Your Price tool from Progressive, you can find options that fit your budget and potentially lower your bills. Try it at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law. Not available in all states.
You've created a cool indoor retreat. Now let Mountain Air Comfort Systems provide the quiet and energy-efficient comfort you can depend on. With a range of innovative cooling solutions like the Carrier Infinity Heat Pump that delivers premium home heating and cooling performance. Learn more at mountainairmobile.com. You make it a home. Let Mountain Air Comfort Systems make it more comfortable. Rebates, incentives, and financing are available for a limited time. Mountain Air Comfort Systems and Carrier. Turn to the experts.
This is Let the Record Show, using common sense. Now, here are your hosts, Judge Richard Weinberg and Chairman Jesse Garcia.
We are back on Let the Record Show with Chairman Jesse Garcia of the Republican Party. Jesse is the Vice Chair of the New York State Republican Party and the County Chair of the Suffolk Republican Party. With us is noted attorney, commentator, essayist Eric Levine. I'm Judge Richard Weinberg. Gentlemen, I want to switch gears, and I think these kind of related questions. So I'll start off with Eric on this. I think that the world is a far more dangerous place today because of Jimmy Carter, Barack Obama, Joe Biden. And the question becomes, will Trump make us safer? What must be done? And in a large sense, that's also related, it seems to me, to the total failure of the Democratic Party to confront reality, whether it's national security, foreign policy, the border, the economy. I think it's all linked together because without a strong economy, gentlemen, without a country that has a good military, one that is willing to fight to protect freedoms abroad and not let hegemonic dictators and terrorists rule the roost. If you don't have that, it all works together to make it a more dangerous and hostile world. Eric, your thoughts?
Well, you talk about is the world a more dangerous place after Carter, Obama, and Biden? I think you have to break that up a little bit. Most of the damage that Carter did to our national security, Ronald Reagan righted that ship, and with the exception of Iran. Of course, one of Jimmy Carter's legacies for which he is praised is his emphasis on making human rights a part of our national security or foreign policy. Look, I'm all for human rights around the world, where it makes sense. But in the name of human rights, Jimmy Carter brought down the Shah. And what did he give us? He gave us the Ayatollah.
Less human rights.
Well, yeah, but exactly. I was going to say, the Ayatollah made the Shah look like a Boy Scout. So you have to use common sense when you practice statecraft and foreign policy. But putting Iran to the side for the moment, we'll come back to it when we talk about Obama and Biden. Ronald Reagan righted most of that. He rebuilt the military. He, along with Margaret Thatcher and the Pope without firing a shot, defeated the evil empire of the Soviet Union and basically perpetuated the American-led world order, made it probably the strongest it's been since Eisenhower after the Second World War. And whether we like it, I think we all have to admit that for the most part, whether it was a Democrat or a Republican president, whether it was H.W. Bush or Bill Clinton or W. Bush, they perpetuated the American-led world order and put America first because they believed that America was the indispensable nation. America was an exceptional nation, and in order for the world to be a safe place, America must be strong and be able to project power abroad. That all changed with Barack Obama. Obama, we will remember, in his first speech about foreign policy, made the declaration that he believes that America is an exceptional nation, just like England thinks it is and Greece thinks it is. In other words, there's nothing exceptional about the United States. It may be a nice place to live, but there's nothing exceptional about the United States. And that statement by itself created a tectonic shift in both how the world viewed the United States and how Barack Obama viewed the world. And we all remember the first foreign policy trip that Barack Obama took was as an apology tour. And he went, part of his apology tour is he went to the Middle East. He went to Saudi Arabia, some of the other Arab countries, and did not visit Israel. And as we look back on many of the things that Obama did, that was a first step, along with the premature withdrawal from Iraq, which led to the rise of ISIS, the undoing of the George W. Bush agreement with Poland and the Czech Republic to place defensive anti-ballistic missile systems in those two countries, which were designed primarily to beat back both a Russian and potentially Iranian ballistic missile system. The Obama's failure or refusal to enforce his red line in Syria. These were all designed to appease Iran in a lead up to the Iran nuclear deal. And what it required was a placing distance between the United States and America's most reliable ally in the world, Israel. And that was the beginning of the unraveling of the American-led world order, which Donald Trump is going to have to re-ravel, because Joe Biden put those policies into hyperdrive. Weakness, appeasement, the concept that if America asserts or projects power abroad because America is a systemically racist and evil country, we're projecting our systemic racism and evilness around the world, and we need to refrain from doing that. So let's bring America home. So it was the Obama foreign policy that started on doing. He's the first post-World War II president that undermined the American-led world order. Carter may have done it because he was just inept. We should remember that after the Soviets invaded Afghanistan, he finally woke up and said, well, maybe I was wrong. But Obama's never said, maybe I was wrong. He's convinced just the planet's other 8 billion people are wrong. And of course, the Biden administration is populated with all kinds of Obama retreads. And so they have doubled down and tripled down and quadrupled down on the very dangerous Obama policies. Look, nobody could have flubbed the Arab Spring in the way that Obama flubbed the Arab Spring, whether it was in Libya, whether it was in Egypt, whether it was in the Gulf, whether it was in the Levant. Every country in the Arab world or the Persian world that Obama touched was damaged, all in the name of the Iran nuclear deal. Now, finally, we're going to get off the world stage. Joe Biden, and hopefully swept from world history, will be the Obama legacy. Trump will rebuild the military. Trump will go back to confronting Iran rather than appeasing Iran. We will expand the Abraham Accords. These are all critical benchmarks to put in place as we rebuild and reassert the United States around the world, because unless we're prepared to project power abroad, no one will respect us, no one will fear us, and we need to put back in place the concept of deterrence. And this comes back to something I've been saying for a very long time. Nothing could be a more effective foreign policy action coming right out of the gate than eliminating militarily, the United States eliminating militarily every aspect of the Iranian nuclear program. It will probably bring down the regime, which will be great for the world, but it will also send a critical message to the Russians and the Chinese that America will defend its interest abroad, a message that must be delivered in the wake of Biden's catastrophic surrender in Afghanistan and inability and weakness in confronting Russia and Ukraine. So I would suggest, and I hope, that will be one of the first acts of the Trump administration.
Jesse, your thoughts?
I think Eric captured everything. As I was preparing for this show, the first subject matter topic I put down here as a major point that the Obamas and the Bidens have made America less safe and the world less safe was the Iran nuclear deal. And but that is, I believe, its catalyst. But to echo what Eric said, it starts with that apology tour, where America was no longer a leader on the global stage. It was not a superpower anymore. It was now a country of appeasement and such. It continued with Obama, as was pointed out, continuing, failing with the continuous moving of the famous red line that he kept doing because he did not want to engage. He let America and America's allies be bullied. He allowed ISIS to grow. Biden followed suit in his return. The Afghanistan pullout was the tip of what was going to be an iceberg of failed foreign policy. His slow support of Ukraine and allowing in language that a small incursion by Russia into Ukraine, that was basically an alarm and the start of a race gun start for the Putin and Russians to go into Ukraine. Certainly not supporting Israel as they should.
I thought it was an Jesse, I thought it was an invitation. The only thing that it didn't say was black tie.
Yeah, it
was optional. It was black tie,
it was an invitation,
optional.
not a gun starter's shot in the air. But certainly the way we treated the Biden administration, the Harris administration, and the Obama administration has treated Israel, America's closest and strongest ally in the Middle East, over their 12 years of serving as president of this country, the leaders of this country, has dangerously placed America and our allies in perilous conditions. You know, we saw under the Trump administration, number 45, the elimination of ISIS, the movement, a bond between the United States and Israel that was unshakable. We saw the restoration of peace through strength, and that, you know what, we're going to carry a big stick, and we're going to have to use it. We're going to warn you, but if you don't heed those warnings, we're going to utilize our resources to protect our people, protect our resources, and protect our allies. We are a much dangerous place. We see the radicalization just in New Orleans of Islam moving forward. It's because it was allowed to fester under appeasement and inactivity and backing the wrong allies in the Middle East by the Biden administration, Harris, and Obama. And as I said, for me, in four words, the major point that makes us less safe today was the Iran deal, and the propensity of the Obamas and the Bidens and the Democrats to elevate Iran and our enemies at the expense of our allies like Israel.
Well, I want to make a couple of points. Number one, Trump is getting a much better hand to play because Israel, through strength and courage and great cost and blood and sacrifice, took on the Islamist menace.
They chose to ignore Biden and Blinken, just yesed them to death and did what they needed to do because they decided we're not just going to fight this war, we're going to win this war. And we got to get back to winning wars.
Exactly right. So I think it's very, very important that Trump, and I think Trump appreciates the fact that Israel has done that. It gives him a much better hand, no thanks to the Obama-Biden appeasers. The other thing I want to point out is, and this involves your knowledge, Jesse, which drives me absolutely insane when I read it in the New York Post today. Suffolk County got sued. It got sued because it cooperated with the federal government, as it's obligated to do under federal law, the Supremacy Clause, because federal law, immigration law, preempts, controls, governs, dominates relationships on immigration. That's as clear can be. It's under our Constitution and under the Supremacy Clause, that's the law of the land. The states and the counties and the cities have no right to create their own foreign policy or their own immigration policy. The sanctuary city nonsense is nonsense. They passed a law in New York and the city about sanctuaries. It's nonsense. It has no legal validity. It's unconstitutional. I couldn't be more clear on that. So what happens? So some lawyers chase up a case out in Suffolk County, Jesse, your world.
Class action suit.
That's right, a class action. So they get some illegal migrants, people who should not be here in the first place. They are trespassers. They are violators of the law and the sovereignty of this country. They should be the hell out of our country until they come through a legal process after they're vetted and they're deemed to be an asset and not a threat to this country. But they let these people in, the Biden-Harris people. They let them in the millions, and we're being overrun by these people. And because Suffolk County cooperated with ICE to detain and hold them until they could be picked up by ICE, they got sued. And in a judgment by a judge in the United States District Court, they said, we got to Suffolk County, you're liable for $60 million, and you're going to have to pay that. Now, I understand that this is going to be appealed because I think it's a bad decision on the law, certainly bad public policy. Why the hell are the nice people of Suffolk having to subsidize people who don't have any right to be here? They have every right to be detained by ICE. And when the locals help them, as they're supposed to do under federal law and under our constitutional system, they're sued?
Absolutely. I give full credit to Suffolk County Executive Ed Romaine and a Republican-led legislature in Suffolk. This is something they're not going to stand for. And in fact, immediately upon that decision, Ed Romaine gathered his legal team, he gathered members of law enforcement in the legislature and announced with one voice, strong and harsh and direct, they are not going to stand for this. They're going to appeal this ill-advised decision because the people of Suffolk County have a better way of spending $60 million. Ed Romaine ran on a platform of making sure that we did not become a housing center for here in Suffolk County for illegal migrants like they have become in New York City and HOCO is allowed throughout the state of New York. Not in Suffolk County, and he campaigned on that, and his governance has demonstrated that execution of that policy and that campaign promise. Also, first to go, working with the new incoming administration, I'm confident that the county executive Ed Romaine is going to be working with ICE and their new leadership to get and rid Suffolk County of all these illegal migrants, especially those with criminal records. Start with the ones with criminal records and then move from there. This is not going to be a financial burden on the people of Suffolk County, not in Ed Romaine's watch and not on the watch of the Republican-led legislature.
Well said. Eric.
Look, we talk frequently about the progressives and the social justice agenda on the federal level. But here on the state level, you have states like New York, Illinois, California. Some of these policies that have been implemented statewide that have trickled down to some of these localities. This is just an example of how devastating these wrong-headed policies and approaches are. And part of the benefit or one of the realities of democracy is the voters get what they vote for.
Or they should.
But, unless and until we start electing competent people to the State House up in Albany, we got to replace Hochul. She's a disaster. We have to replace a state legislature, a Senate, and an assembly that are owned by the teachers union and other public employee unions. You have a New York City council that's literally a bunch of Marxists. And then we wonder why we have bad policies, and we wonder why these things happen. That's why. And unless and until the residents of the state of New York wake up and start electing, I'm not even going to say Republicans. Let's just start electing mainstream, sane human beings to run our state. This is the crap that we're going to run into.
You just defined Republican. Thank you very much.
And in a historical footnote, what used to be my Democratic Party. This has been Let the Record Show with Chairman Jesse Garcia of the Republican Party, noted attorney, commentator, and essayist Eric Levine. I'm Judge Richard Weinberg. Thank you for listening. God bless you. God bless your families. God bless America. And we look forward to being with you again next week on Let the Record Show. Thank you.
Let the Record Show is on the air.